So, Russell,
Yes, sir.
give us a little lowdown on the film without any spoilers.
A lowdown on the film without spoiling. Okay, it's about a group of 7 friends and extended family who go on a hunting trip into the Florida Everglades. And one of the young men who's going on this trip has just come back from a war overseas, serving overseas, and he comes home with a dark secret. And suddenly, one by one, they're being predated by something which they don't know how to hunt. And they don't know whether their friend who had served overseas has something to do with this. He's brought home a dark secret or not.
So what was the genesis of the movie? What attracted you to Native American folklore?
It's an interesting question. Native American folklore has always been something that's kind of been discussed as a hothouse topic, both in my home as a child, because my dad was definitely into Central and South American cultures. And then I actually married a woman who's indigenous North America. She's Cherokee. And so that continued conversation about the mythologies of indigenous folks just kept becoming a part of my culture, if you will, my extended culture. And the idea that really hooked me into this was there's all cross-culturally, there's these stories that are mythological tales about Iktomi or Shapeshifter or Wendigo or Wentico, or these myths about these spirits that have been left behind, if you will, or conjured by the indigenous tribes to take redemption or revenge against the colonialists for taking things away from them. And that kind of was the hook for me in terms of writing this.
It's interesting you mentioned your family there, because while it's undoubtedly a horror film, I think at the heart of it, it's a character-driven family drama.
Absolutely, absolutely. I am a firm believer that there is no plot, there's only character. And for me, if the core characters are a blood family or just a new age family, if you will, which is an extended family of friends that are, or they say in Native American culture, they say your teoshpe or your circle. And for me, that circle, if we can't connect emotionally to that core group of folks, then once they start to have or be predated or disappear or things start to occur against them, then how can we even care for these characters if we aren't connected to them first of all? So that was the idea of the family at the core.
From a couple of things you've already said before we started the interview, you sound like quite a cerebral character.
Me?
Yeah. I think there's a big... It's a very cerebral film as well. In particular, from the ambiguity aspect of it. There's a great ambiguity in the film.
Well, thank you. I think that's a compliment. I think that, a lot of times, especially in genre, we want one thing. We want to just be able to snap on to what it is. We want to go, this is a horror film, or this is an action film, or this is a thriller. And this film actually incorporates a lot of those things, and at the heart of it is a character drama. When you're dealing with mythology, I don't think there's an answer. When we talk about the end of the world, or we talk about these cataclysms that could occur to sort of end our existence here on this planet, we never know whether it's going to be some disease that is conjured by the melting of, the grasslands in the Arctic. That's something that we have built our immune system against, or if it's going to be something that's man-made. We're never going to know the genesis of what comes to get us. And I think if we're very specific about, The Walking Dead is a perfect example of that. I haven't seen Fear of the Walking Dead, but I guarantee you they're going to be smart enough to not tell you what it is that happened, some test tube that went awry in some lab in Los Angeles. The genesis of this apocalyptic moment, I think, has its roots in all sorts of mythologies and all sorts of untruths and folklore and tales. So I don't think you can be absolutely didactic about those kind of things.
Are you a spiritual person yourself?
Yes, sir.
Thought so.
Yeah.
It's like, as well, there's a bigger picture going on. It's not just in the film, that is. It's not just confined to the cabin and the Everglades itself, as snippets of this is actually a global thing.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, for me, the story once we have our characters out there in the Everglades and we're dealing with this central group of characters and what's happening to them specifically, for me was always a life raft on an ocean of something larger that was occurring. And so we hear things on the radio, we tease out snippets of perhaps a world that's beyond them that is similar, things that are similarly occurring to what's happening to them. So I like that in a very sort of Kubrickian sense, if you will, where you don't know if this is just happening to these centralized characters or if they're going to step out into a world. Is there a safe landing when they come home, or are they going to be subjected to something that's even worse?
Do you believe that such entities as what might or might not be in the film exists? It's all subjective, but
Totally.
It sounds to me like you might have a belief in that.
You know, I'm an empiricist. I think I'm in conflict with these kind of things because I'm actually looking always constantly for empirical evidence of things, whether it be ghosts or other entities or aliens or extraterrestrial beings or people that, or other sort of dimensional, you know, sort of occurrences. And I'm fascinated with those worlds because I think as we evolve as a species, I think those areas of what we call dimensions are breaking down. And I just think that's part of our evolutionary process. And maybe I'm totally wrong in that, because when you do look at tribal cultures dating back thousands and thousands of years, their relationship to the other worlds was part of their everyday life. And, you know, we try to, I think in modern day worlds, give context to that by saying that that was ignorance. But I think in a lot of ways that was a lot more profound. I mean, their relationship to the biosphere, to the world beyond, Native American cultures, their brotherhood, their fraternity was with all the others creatures of this planet. So that was the language they spoke, you know, and even in the way we separate the things that we do, like in our culture, like what do you do? That's what you are, what you do. In Native culture, they didn't even have a word for art. It wasn't an artist, it was just part of what you did, you know? So to answer your question, I'm always looking and seeking and trying to sort of ask the questions in an empirical way, but in my heart and in my spiritual sort of context, I do feel that how can we only be the only thing?
This is my point. It's personally, I don't need scientific evidence to have a personal belief that these things exist, which I do. I do. The Native American elder speech at the big part of it at the beginning of the film says they fight, they take in places where they don't belong. I'm going to ask you a question now that might be completely have nothing to do with the film, but for me personally, that could also be an anti-war statement. The film could be viewed by me as a kind of anti-war film, like, because of what transpires in the film. They went somewhere, did some damage, may have brought something back.
Totally. 100%. And this is the reason why I'm so grateful that this movie is having its world premiere in Europe. Because Europeans have a context for that sort of colonialism. And I don't think America, being a young country, still a young country, 200 and some odd years old, has really gotten a hold of that in terms of taking responsibility for its colonialist sort of expansion, if you will. And so, yeah, it's an American film. It takes place in America, but we're dealing with this idea of colonialism and expansion. And for me, thematically, you're right on, Billy. It's about blowback. The film is about blowback. And now, mind you, it's a popcorn movie. It's a fun movie.
Yeah.
But underneath it, there's all this stuff going on.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned it. Excuse me, I mentioned earlier about it being a cerebral movie as well, because you can watch it on the level straight ahead as a horror film.
Right.
But it's a very intelligent movie because you've built in so many layers that if you're the kind of person that looks for that stuff in a film, or you're aware of that stuff in your own existence, then you'll see that you've placed all those things there as well that are to be seen or not seen depending on the person watching it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, I'm a firm believer that don't make a film unless you have something to say.
Yeah.
And I don't think that horror has to be recused from politics or mythologies or anything. That's, you know, getting back to your original sort of questions, is I think it's a wonderful fertile ground for making a statement, you know, and thank you for picking up on those things, because they're
Thank you for making the film.
well, thank you.
What's next, very quickly?
I'm doing a thriller with Lena Headey
Okay.
from Game of Thrones, called Woman of the Woods. Very excited about that. That's my next project.
Russell, thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chainsaw. Okay.